Hi guys, Brand here, and welcome to my comprehensive thoughts. I have come out of the PTB. I've tested things on the PTB for 5 hours. So I'm here to tell you, I went into the most controversial patch to come to DBD in a very, very long time. The big mid-chapter shakeup of the meta. And a lot of people are saying it's going to quit the game and that they're uninstalling because they're so afraid of what the change is going to be bringing to the game. And other people are really excited. I would say by and large majority of people are positive or hopeful, at least for some things, as I pulled earlier in the week. But here's the truth of it based on my 5 hours of experience. First off, I want to start with the positive. Positive here is that the base kit changes to both sides are really nice and they're not too much. That was kind of one of the people's biggest worries when it came to the base kit changes, especially for killer, were that the killer changes were too much and the survivor changes were not enough to the base kit. However, I enjoyed both and didn't feel either of them to be aggressively too strong. A lot of people thought that the level 1 brutal strength being base kit and the 2 stacks of Sabiffle being base kit would be a huge thing that kind of turned the game more into a killer-sided affair. However, in practice, this just kind of serves to help M1 killers who were already not too great at the game anyway, who kind of suffered and had a lot of trouble even fighting people who weren't coordinated. And just even like a mostly solo queue team, sometimes you would have an extremely hard match as an M1 killer just based on map spawn, and that sort of thing. So having the base kit brutal rank 1 and having 2 stacks to Biffle, if you get a team or even just a group of survivors in general that like to hold W, that like to pre-drop, that try to manipulate the fact that you're just an M1 killer, you have these little things that help you kind of cut that kind of really boring gameplay out, or at least, you know, dumb down that terrible experience, because nobody has a fun time in there. The survivors aren't looping, they're just pre-dropping, so they're not having anything exciting happen. The killer's not having a good time because they're the one on the receiving end of an extremely safe but extremely strong play. Now, a lot of people were afraid of like how this is going to affect really good killers in the game, and by and large, if you're an M2 killer, most of the time you're using your M2, and really the base kit buffs only really affect killers that are really going for that M1 play style. By and large, if you are playing an M2 killer, you're mostly going for M2 shenanigans. You're not going to be kicking a lot of pallets if you have a way to circumvent pallets, and also you're not going to be using your M1 that often if your M2 is the primary way you get damage. So it kind of in practice kind of works out okay, which is I'm happy to say. When I played killer during the PTB, I didn't feel like I was winning any sort of, like I was winning chases because of this. It was just a slight little, okay, this doesn't feel as bad, which is what it was intended to do. The survivor side of things, I thought that the BT base kit situation was not going to be too great. The endurance was going to be nice and the haste was going to be nice, but I didn't think it was going to be enough. And for the most part, I was happy to say that I was pretty much wrong. I played more survivor than I did killer on the PTB, and I will say that the base kit BT, the base kit endurance and haste was actually pretty nice. It was pretty good. I actually did not run BT like once the entire time I played the PTB, and it was completely fine. And there was only one scenario where it wasn't okay, and it was when I played on Suffocation Pit. Suffocation Pit has a long basement. So some basements in the game, if you didn't know this, have longer basements. So essentially they'll have a staircase that leads down towards the basement, and then the true basement staircase will begin, you know, with the wooden steps. So a Suffocation Pit, they have this little slope, like this little minecart slope that goes down first, and then it's the basement stairs, like the true basement stairs. RPD also has this, where they have the RPD staircase, and then it starts the basement staircase. Another good one is the long basement in Thompson House. But essentially what I'm trying to say is that when the endurance and haste is only 5 seconds, by the time you scale that really long basement, that was the main points and situations I was realizing, like, oh, this isn't enough. So maybe you could adjust it by 2 to 3 more seconds to try and cover the kind of those long basement situations, because in that case, yeah, the endurance and the haste actually do kind of do nothing in those scenarios, because you spend so much time running out of the basement that by the time you're out of there, there's nothing you can do anymore. You've ran out of everything. But other than that, I would say 9 out of 10 situations where I was like, oh god, I got farmed, I still had endurance, and I just ate the endurance and kept going, and it was fine. Like I was pleasantly surprised at how not a problem, the duration was. But yeah, maybe extend by 2 or 3 seconds so we can actually get out of log basements. That's my only suggestion there. I think another positive is that by and large, the perks, the problem perks, have been mostly done away with, and now there's only like 2 or 3 problem perks on each side. And I think in the current version of the game, the current meta of the game, there's always at least 4 or 5 perks, if not more, to worry about on each side. There's a lot of things that are aggressively meta and are aggressively good, and that's why there was so many changes, because so much stuff was in that upper echelon of that like S tier strength. Like we talked about in my Nurse and Blight video yesterday, most stuff in a game, if you want balance, is you want it to be A and B tier. You want to bring things out of C and D, but you want to take the S tier stuff and move it down. That way you can, balance the game properly, since everything's vaguely in the same place, but also not bad. And I think that we had a lot of perks that were like S tier, a lot of perks that were really, really good. And now the problem perks, I would call them the S tier perks, there's only like 2 or 3 on each side that are like aggressively meta if you're not running like a specific build to get something out of it, which is really, really nice that they kind of like narrowed down this reliance on crutch perks and crutching on perks that play the game for you. And when we point at something, we go, that's broken, that's stupid. We're only pointing at like a few things instead of like a full handful or more, which is nice. Another positive change is that a lot of these smaller perks that they did in terms of like the most unused perks and buffing them, all of them are really nice. There's a lot of like niche builds. When I was playing Survivor, I did like Hope, Addy, No One Left Behind, and Soul Survivor. And it was really funny because it was like as people died, I got stronger, and then it became like a 2v1. And then when I popped the gen, I became super powerful. Right, and then we were able to get out. And also there was times where I ran that and I got to the end game and I was just like, I'm sprinting around with Hope and I'm unhooking people like half a second and healing them like super crazy quick. It was super fun, and that was just like a perk combination that just like literally didn't exist before, and it's super fun. You can do so many different kind of like altruism builds now, because so many things give endurance. So you can do stuff like We're Gonna Live Forever and give them endurance off the floor. So you can there's just like so many new perk possibilities. Jolt doesn't have a cooldown anymore, so you can just run Jolt and get a lot of fun value. Jolt, Surveillance, and some other perk I was running. But yeah, essentially there's so many new perk combinations that exist now because of those small little buffs. And it's like, wow, we can run different stuff now. It's amazing. It's really cool. There's a lot of new perk combinations that didn't exist before because of the buffs. It's just super nice, and it's super fun. However, I want to get to the things that I want to see changed, and there are things that I want to see changed, things that I think that should be improved from the PTB that I feel like if they made it live, it would kind of be detrimental to the game. My 2 main things for Survivor, first being that the DS timer did not need its nerf. After playing the PTB, DS, I don't understand this philosophy. They wanted to start countering camping and tunneling, which is why Survivors got a base kit added. They had endurance and haste added to their base kit when they unhooked someone. So why on earth did they go into the Survivor, the biggest anti-tunneling Survivor perk, and lower its stun time from 5 seconds to 3 seconds? I don't get that. And it's not even in the sense of like, oh, well, sometimes when you get stunned, it's not because you were necessarily tunneling. Like, it's to the point where like DS is quite literally useless if you're up against a ranged killer, like mostly against when you're a ranged killer. Because if you stun a Huntress and you start running away, within 3 seconds, she's got a hatchet up and she's throwing it at you. If a Plague has Corrupt Purge and they stun you with DS, within 3 seconds she can vomit and hit you. Like, same thing with like Deathslinger. Like, you stun a Deathslinger, he has his harpoon loaded. He can harpoon you and bring you in like immediately. And it just defeats the whole purpose of the perk, which is to prevent tunneling, because it's not actually doing that job, especially against ranged killers. So they need to put that timer back up. They really do, because it's just not enough. It's just not. The other thing I want to see changed on the Survivor side, and this is probably the biggest one, is, I don't even know if this is on purpose, but for some reason, endurance stacks. A lot of the buffs to Survivor perks that happened during this PTB were granting a bunch of things endurance. Picking somebody up with We're Gonna Live Forever gives you endurance, base kit BT endurance, normal BT endurance, off the record endurance. Like, all these things give endurance. Like, everything gives endurance now. But for some reason, these endurance stacks, so you can have multiple uses of endurance affecting you at the same time, so you can essentially tank a bunch of hits. And I can't imagine that's by design. That's probably just behavior spaghetti code doing things, but it's definitely annoying. It's definitely like you'll be, I think there was one game where I hit somebody 3 times, and then on the 4th I was finally able to down them. So I had to hit somebody 4 times to get him to go down. And there are a lot of people I've seen on Twitter with this one that'll say, like, is that realistically going to happen in a game? I'm like, this is the most pea brain thing I've ever heard somebody say. They say the same thing about Boil Over. Remember Boil Over was super strong? Everybody said, yeah, realistically, do you think people will actually be using this in an actual match? And everybody did it. It was RPD straight to the top of the library, and you couldn't hook anybody. It was Batum straight to the middle of the school, no basement, couldn't hook anybody. People abused that immediately. If you do not think people will intentionally run this and intentionally abuse this, you are incorrect and you are wrong. If you don't think people will intentionally run this just to be annoying, just to make the killer mad, just to hold up the gameplay, they 1000% will, and you are wrong. So they need to make endurance, not stack. So all these new things, since everything's giving you endurance, you can't just stack this up and get multiple uses. Okay, the killer changes are honestly the thing that I feel like needs the most work. Honestly, the killers, we've talked until we were blue in the face about how survivors have used Dead Hard for forever and ever. And I will die on the hill that Dead Hard took no thought and won the game for free for a lot of people, especially if everybody on the team brought it, or a majority of people on the team brought it. That perk won games despite, like, it got value just by being in the game, and it was a game-changing perk that required so little effort and so little skill that it might as well have just been getting value for free. That is now gone. Dead Hard, thankfully now operates almost in an even better way, but it's skill based. So I feel like if you wait out Dead Hard, you just get the hit. But if you don't wait out Dead Hard, they get endurance now, so they get a speed burst, so they can actually chain tiles now if you fail to wait out a Dead Hard, which in a sense is better. But now we have Dead Hard, but for killers, this perk that you can bring in that gets so much value, but you don't have to do anything special or anything that requires skill, and that's overcharge. Overcharge is way too strong. Way too strong. We had a situation in one of our matches where we were fighting my friend who was playing Wraith, and he had overcharge on. And what he did is, when we did a couple gens, he sat near the center gen that was going to break our 3 gen and just kept overcharging it and overcharging it and overcharging it every time anybody would do anything and chase them off the gen. And then when we got tired of having that gen overcharge, because overcharge doesn't have a cooldown, you could just kick infinitely, we decided to go do the other gens. And guess what? That 3 gen does, because, well, you know, the 1 gen we need to do to stop the 3 gen was in the center. So then he just switched to guarding the 3 gen and then did the same thing where he just kicked the gen, kicked the gen, kicked the gens. Because overcharge can work on multiple gens at the same time as well, so there's not a limit there either. You're noticing a pattern here. So they were just kicking gens and getting that over and over and over, that value over and over again. Now, I thought overcharge was going to be fine, because I was like, well, it takes 30 seconds for it to reach that 400% number. That's really strong. So there's no way nobody's not going to tap that gen for a full 30 seconds. But the thing is, it's a sliding scale. Like, it gets worse over time. It will eventually reach that. It's going 100, 200, 300 up until the 400. You can kick the gens without any sort of prerequisite or any sort of cooldown. Even if somebody comes in and taps the gen and you just happen to be right there, the moment they get off, you can just kick it again. So over time, you think about it like if you were playing like another video game, like an MMO or something. Like, think about the DPS. Think about the damage to that gen per second. Over time, you are actually doing more than 400% to the gen just by having people tap it, because when you kick it again and you leave it for like 10, 20 seconds, you're going up to that 200, 300 number. And even if somebody taps it again and you run back and you push them off and you kick it again, you're starting that cycle all over again. So essentially, you can pressure multiple gens as long as they're close at the same time, just by reaching that middle ground, not getting the full 400%, but getting somewhere in there like 200, 300% and keeping it there and getting almost more value and more damage output just by making sure that every time they tap the gen that you come back and you kick it again. This perk is like literally that person, like they didn't have other slowdown. They literally won the game off of having overcharge. And that was the deciding factor that won that game. They literally brought that perk and it carried. It won the game for them. And like, that is bad game design. That is why we have hated Dead Hard for so long. Because Dead Hard was the same stuff. You just bring it in and it just wins the game for you, even though you didn't really do anything besides press spacebar to kick the gen. Like, nothing there requires skill. Nothing. And you get so much value that is just so oppressive and so absurd. So oppressive, so absurd. Overcharge cannot go live the way it is. It is the Dead Hard of killers. I bring it and I get tons of value without any effort. It needs to either have its power like dip down to like 250, 200, or it needs to have a cooldown. It needs some sort of prerequisite or cooldown. That way it's not happening as often. Because overcharge in its current state is probably the most meta slowdown in the game, and it is way too strong. It needs to go. One of the things that I actually was very, very thankful, because this is something I was afraid of when I posted a whole video about this, is I was afraid of them raising the gen speeds, taking 90 seconds instead. I was worried about this, but for the most part, I didn't actually notice this. When a gen wasn't being affected by a gen perk, I didn't actually notice that the gens were longer. I actually kind of forgot until a certain point, and that certain point being when Thanatophobia kicked in. Thanatophobia is just good now, and there's no reason not to run it. And then once again, it's one of those situations where Thanat doesn't take any skill. You just hit people. That's all it takes to go off. You just hit people. That's it. You just smack. You play the video game normally. You smack the survivors, and you get value. And since they've increased that value, gens just start taking forever. And when you run that on top of like Gift of Pain, when you run that on top of say Overcharge, for example, it's miserable. One of my friends was playing Ghostface and just casually playing, like not even trying, and was getting nurse level pressure, in her own words, getting nurse level pressure because she brought Thana and Overcharge into a game. This is not working. This is not it. Like, if you the dream here was that we moved away from slowdown as a meta entirely. We move away from the slowdown meta, and we move away from the exhaustion meta. Gen rush meta goes, exhaustion meta goes, and so does the slowdown meta. They just replaced the 5 good slowdowns and took 2 other unrelated slowdowns that weren't good and put them back in and said, hey, these are the new meta now. If you're wanting to really shake up the meta, you need to not have slowdowns this powerful. You can't have that. If you're going to take away all that side of things when it comes to like exhaustion meta and gen meta, you need to go over here and make sure that the slowdown meta is not also super powerful and still doing its thing, just on a different perk. That defeats the purpose of a meta shakeup. Like, this is ridiculous. This is absolute. I don't know how they're like, man, corrupt has to go away after you down someone and like make a perk that was already balanced worse, but overcharge can be out here like kicking gens infinitely with no cooldown and enacting that crazy amount of slowdown just cause. Like, where was the design philosophy there? I don't understand. I really don't. So you got TLDR, you gotta make sure Thana and Overcharge, especially Overcharge, don't go live the way they are. Because I'm telling you what, a good Swift can get past these perks. I 100% believe they can. Majority of these people that play the video game though, who play Survivor, they're solo queue or they're playing with 1 or 2 friends. They are not, half the time they're not on comms. Half the time they're just playing with their friends without Discord or anything in the background. Most people play this game don't go hard. And they will have a miserable, absolutely miserable time if Overcharge and Thana go live the way they are. There were points, and guys, I'm a killer main, and you know I have been. I try to be as down the middle as I can, but like killer's like the main thing I do and the main thing I love about this game. And I've had no qualms about like playing hard when I have to. I'm telling you from that perspective that there were games today when everybody was bringing Thanat overcharge because why not? It's the best new now. I was literally at certain points in those matches, like near the end, I would just let go of the controls. I let go of my keyboard and just let my friends kill me. Like 1000% not exaggerating. I let go and just let my friends just get me out of the match. And then I gave up on Hook. And we were in Kill Your Friends. Like this was for nothing. Like, and I said, I just don't want to play this anymore. Like this is awful and I'm just done. So if I who usually tries to be as like down the middle and not weird as possible when it comes to like being emotional about the way games are going and balances, if I'm at a point where I'm like, dude, just kill me, get me out of this game. If I'm at this point where I'm just like, dude, just end the game, I'm done. Just get me out. That, I think that says something. Also, this is a small gripe, and this is a complete small, like just non-consequential gripe. The prestige rewards were terrible. If you prestige through your character before you before the mid chapter goes through, you're getting a gold shimmering GIF. It looks like they bedazzled your character, and it's not a cosmetic. It's just on the little portrait of your character in the menu, so nobody can see it if you don't stream. That's it. That's all. It's just a gold shimmering GIF filter that goes over your character portraits. That's it. That's what you work so hard for. That is your legacy prestige, as it's called in the menu. I think the fact that they allowed you to turn it off in the menu, that is a toggle, you can turn it off in the menu, is kind of a self-admittance that even they didn't think it looked really good. And that sucks. That really sucks. So yeah, if I could summarize my thoughts, I think this patch is still overall going to be good for the game. Good for the game's health. We've gutted most of the big meta perks. They're mostly gone, yeah. Base kit buffs are nice for both sides without being too overpowered. And there's only like 2 problem perks on each side that I'm like, well, this is going to be so oppressive and terrible. Most times, most situations where something is oppressive or annoying now, you have to run like 3 or 4 perks to conjoin it to make it like really good. So that's nice. That is a better place to be for the game. I think the games felt healthier, they felt nicer, and that was great. But like I said, there's the things they did really, really good. They did really, really good. Things they did bad, they did really bad. And that being overcharge, mainly overcharge being way too strong. And then Thanat coming up in second, also being annoying. And also having endurance being able to stack allows survivors to very, very easily manipulate that and body block way more. Having to hit somebody 4 times to down them. 4 times to down them. It's ridiculous. And it does need to go. It does need to go. So yeah, that's kind of like the main things. Those are the main takeaways. Hopefully they have time and they can fix these things in their current state before they go live. It's a teeter-totter. It's kind of spooky. It's kind of spooky right now. I won't lie to you, because the game feels better than ever before. But the moment somebody runs in with overcharged Thanat, like the game is one of the most painful experiences I've ever had on Survivor. When we had people who took Killer in our Kill Your Friends, and they didn't run Thanat, didn't run overcharge, the games were great, and I had more fun on Survivor in those games than I have had ever playing Survivor. It made me think like, dude, yeah, they need to address these things before they go live. Because if they do, this is going to be the best the game has felt from a gameplay perspective, from a game health perspective, in its entire history. If they leave overcharge and Thanat the way it is, it might be really, really miserable and really, really awful for Survivor for a long time until they fix that. And that's the truth of it. I wish I could be positive and say, people are over exaggerating. I'm like, they're not. Overcharge to that is way too strong and is ruining my Survivor games and is ruining Survivor games of other people. So if they can fix that, this is literally one of the best things happened in the game in my time playing it. But if they don't, where we're at, we'll see. Yeah, we'll leave you with that. So, what were your impressions for the PTB? Did you play it? Did you watch somebody play it? What did you think? Did you think that the changes were mostly helpful for the game, or did you think that overall it's actually going to hurt the game? Let me know down in the comments below. But other than that, this will be it for today's video, friend. It was a long one. Sorry about that, but hopefully I can still see you tomorrow. Hopefully I can still entice you to watch more of me tomorrow. But if I don't see you tomorrow, I will see you when I see you, friends. Goodbye.